Hello, folks. Welcome to day 33 in Raj Muuin. Oh, wait a second. This ain't Minecraft. What? Oh, hey, look. Somebody created a masterpiece. Never mind. Let's do this. Okay, so yes, actually 33 days. And yet again it has forgot about my having played. I was recording earlier with caffeine on the server to explore some of the stuff I didn't know where to look for earlier. Yeah, that's close enough. Oh, I still hear snakes, but I don't see the snakes. So I really need to establish a project, I'm telling you. Whoa, ow, monger. Absolute owmonger. Doesn't it sound like there's a snake? Well, regardless, I want some sort of central structure. Is the snake up here? It is. Okay. How did it get up there? And I think I'm just going to use the natural location provided by this well to that end. I'm going to yank some stuff out. But beyond that, I don't have a particular plan. I think I did mention to Caffeine that I would like to build one of my signature spiral staircases around here. I'm not sure, though, how that will affect the water. Let me dig down a little bit. Oh, hello, snake. I didn't even see you. I mean, I did, but I didn't see you come down. So, I need a topic, and, well, I could potentially... Oh, look, it doesn't appear to be... Okay. Okay, good. That's what I wanted. Alright, so... I thought I would talk about, or rant today about people. Specifically... You know, I'm a political creature. I care about what happens to the world and the nation and my community and the people around me, and that is an act of politics. Politics is the negotiation between people who have slightly or even vastly different needs so that the best common outcome can occur for as many people as possible. And unfortunately, a large segment of the population of, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I just want to, of politicians, largely, as seen from my perspective, the right wing, do not see politics that way. And in fact, they come right out on tape and say, we hate government, our goal is to destroy government, or as Norquist said some years back, he wants government to be reduced to something so small that he can take it into the bathroom and drown it in the bathtub. And essentially, no government at all is what he wants. And that's horrible, horrible, horrible idea. I know people think, well, government is the muscle of the community. It is everybody come together and through each other produce an outcome that is more than they can produce themselves. That's all it is. There are definitely people who try to take advantage of it. That's happened in the past. Many governments have turned out to be quite horrible. That does not mean that all government is horrible. In fact, ooh, really? Hey! You leave him alone. At least the big cats are fairly rare. That's the first one, maybe? No, it's not the first, but... Anyways, I am a believer in government as long as that government is being used correctly. Because without it, you don't have anything that you take for granted. You have no protection from anything. You have no benefits of anything. No roads. This is so much that people take for granted. And it's infuriating. It really is. Man. And, you know, the internet being the internet, that led today to some argument, specifically about the fact that right now we are in the midst of a government shutdown, which is harming a lot of people quite badly. It's fresh. It's new. Yeah, it's not. Oh, jeez, I don't really like jungle wood, but considering how much of it is here, I might as well use it. So let's make a whole bunch of this stuff. That's what I generally use for stairwell production. Interesting. Well, I mean, I work, my day job, I'm in a building that is largely shared by a fair number of, well, I'd say more than half the building is government workers. It's one of the agencies, like department of something or other. A relatively benign one that you wouldn't think twice about, but they're all gone. They're not around right now. Do you guys remember this pattern right here? Yes? And you think, if you're one of those people who doesn't like, if you're sort of, and I quote the term conservative because the fact of the matter is people who are this way are not actually succeeding at being conservative in any way, shape, or form. For them, it is a title. It is a club to be in. Hey. Interesting. And that's not the point of having, it's tribalism. And I try is very hard not to blame them for things because for the most part, they're good people too. And what they're suffering from is fear and a general lack of good information. And so, a lack of good information also increases one's threshold of fear. The less you know, the more you're fearful. Even if you're faced, and this is humanly true, even if you're faced with a terrible circumstance, if you know what's going on and you have some kind of plan or course forward in dealing with it, you handle it better than something that is relatively benign but mostly unknown. You fear a relatively safe but unknown thing more than you fear a terrible thing that you know about. It's sort of understandable, really, but it's very much human nature. And unfortunately, the average conservative is a relatively uninformed person, and therefore relatively high in fear quotient. It does not make them a bad person. It makes them unfortunate, and unfortunately, they can base bad decisions based upon that. Actual conservatism is a fine thing. It doesn't exist right now. People call themselves conservative, but they don't know what it means anymore, and that's a real problem. Anyways, this is all, like I said, revolving around the government shutdown, and it's you got the Republicans who are not conservative. Like I said, misusing the term horribly. There's nothing about what they're doing is conservative in any way, shape, or form. It is a bad word in their context, or it doesn't apply to them. But they have been pushing for a shutdown for quite a while, and they basically to gum up the works. They have been working on it quite hard since 2010, when they gerrymandered the hell out of the national districts, which is where people vote. And there's some places that are so terribly gerrymandered that it literally takes 7 Democratic votes to match or to counteract 1 Republican vote. They went to a great amounts of work, and especially for people who are intrinsically Democratic because they're intrinsically disenfranchised. And the Democrats in the last century or so have a better track record of being for people who have had it rough rather than against them. The disenfranchised. So minorities and poor people almost always vote. I'll just say minorities because unfortunately there are rednecky kind of poor white people who are very extremely Republican. So it's that might not be a good analogy, but I think that's good enough for now. Ow! Ow! And anyways, oh yeah, careful. See, I slightly lost my train of thought, which you're probably like, yay, lost train of thought. Apologies. But. Oh man, I really did. I lost my train of thought. Oops, wrong side. Come back. This is I'm gonna have to come up with a means for lighting this up. Look at that. It looks like some sort of fruit. Okay. But in any case, the Republicans have been very, very, very anti-government lately. Sorry, gerrymandering. Yeah, they have found ways, and this is not this has been going on since before America existed, so it's not a new thing, but it's generally done. Sometimes it can even be done for good effect. This just isn't one of those times, wherein they find ways to take a nugget of democratic population, like a university town or an ethnic area, where lots of hello helicopter. Ow! Sorry about the helicopter, folks. Yeah, don't you die, please. And what they do is they divide it in really crazy ways. Whenever the census comes up, or sometimes even without the census, if they can get some people to sign off on it, they can start doing this anytime. But it's not as often. It doesn't happen as often that way. But basically, they take an area that is strongly democratic, and they divide it. Oh my gosh, any number of ways. They'll have like this, the borders of the district will snake through and curl around and double back on itself, just so that they can take it and mix that population up with local, other more Republican areas, such that, let's say, you're a Democratic university town, reasonably well educated, know more about how the world works, more likely to vote in favor of working people who are the real economy. Not rich people are not the real economy at all. It's the middle and working class that are. And they mix it up with, let's say, the several counties nearby which are much more rural and trend much more Republican, so that as a result, another helicopter. What the heck's going on out there? They're zoning in on me for having Democratic leanings. I'm sorry. I'm just basing this off of, data. I'm trying to be reasonable here. Anyways, so that in the new districts, in each of the new ones, Republicans vastly outnumber the Democrats, even though in this particular area, the Democrats would have had their way. So basically, it robs them of their voice entirely. And Texas, you look at the map, the district maps for Texas, and this is absolutely... You got districts that snake almost the entire length of the state to try to divide up more Democratic city areas, so that the more rural Republican areas basically countermand them completely. It's a pretty horrible show, but basically in the 2010 election, where the Republicans took over the House and all the progress we were making in reducing the deficit and stuff like that basically ended. I mean, it hasn't stopped completely, but the trajectory changed horribly in the wrong direction, because they basically put a halt on all the positive work that was being done. And basically in Virginia and Texas, Virginia where I am right now, even though I'm not a native, I'm from Maine, Texas, North Carolina, South, basically, sort of what you'd consider to be conservative holdouts. They were actually strong elements of democracy. And yet, in some cases, as much as 60% of the people in the state voted Democratic, but 60, 70 sometimes percent of the people elected were Republican, which really tells you that they had worked it so that Democratic votes didn't count for much. And that should be treasonous. I mean, the whole point of having the system is to address the needs of people, not special interests, not one type of person over another, all people. And so if you have an area that is heavily conservative, then they have certain needs that need to be met, and you want to be able to hear what they want. And then you go towards the city where people are more democratic, and you hear what they want. And then you try to come up with, state by state or on a national level, you try to come up with a compromise that is as good for both of them simultaneously as you can possibly figure out. Or, if it really is that divided between city and rural, then you can sort of adjust things so that it's slightly better in the city for the Democrats and slightly better in the countryside for the Republicans, and everybody is about as happy as you can get, given, limited resources, limited time and money and all that stuff. But we've ended up with with a Republican Party that is full of children, or basically sociopaths. But we exist to serve their needs rather than they are being employed to serve ours. And they're holding up the entire government. They're holding up the government hostage. They're holding all these government workers hostage. They're hurting all the people who have jobs that are strongly peripheral to them. Like this little old, well, not old, but little Korean lady down on the lower lobby level of my building, who has runs sort of a Chinese, well, basically just a sort of general buffet of food, and it's all right. It's not the most amazing food ever, but it's good and it's predictable, and I go down there a lot. She's very nice. We have little wars between us about who can be nicer, because man, a helicopter again. Maybe they're searching for somebody. Manhunt. I'm in here, guys. Where's the moon? Oh, I've got to stop soon, but I'll try to wrap this up. Oops. And she's super nice. I tried to leave extra change in her change thing, and she's like, no. And then, I'll pay, a different way, and she'll try to reduce the amount I pay, and I'm like, no. So I'll put money in the jar instead, and it gets to be a little bit of a war of who can be nicer. It's kind of strange, but oops, I'm unhealthy. I didn't even realize. And she's not a government worker. However, because most of the building is, she's down there pretty much alone all day long with this buffet that is barely being touched because there's nobody around. So I've made a point this week of going down there for lunch every day. I usually only do it once a week, but now I'm doing it every day just so that she gets a little bit of income, But it's just, if you're saying, oh, it's just government workers, screw them, stuff like that. No. You're hurting. That's 800,000 people who are not working right now. But that's probably 2.5, 3 million people in their immediate vicinity who are losing business because these people can't afford to swing by and buy food or go to the restaurant or get necessities like, toilet paper and all that stuff. This ripples outwards, and it will keep rippling and keep rippling. And we have examples. I mean, if the quote-unquote conservative perspective on this is, well, we can't spend money. We have so much debt. Well, compared to many other nations, actually, our debt load is pretty small compared to our GDP. And there are other places that have much higher debt loads that are still perfectly fine, doing very well, better than us, frankly. It's not related. It's just the argument that it's based purely on debt is false. It's a concern. You don't ignore the debt. But you don't solve it by basically obliterating your economy. And that's what they're doing. And that's, it's good for the big business people because I got to be careful now. Because insecure workers are willing to be paid less and willing to be abused more. And I think that's really what this is all about. And the Republicans are basically owned by corporations at this point. There have been times in the past where the Republicans were the party of reason and the Democrats were the party of slavery and things like that. That hasn't been true in 100 years. Whoa. Not at all. So you've got to be realistic about this stuff. Oh, man. Oh. What was that? Oh, the spider and the rat fought. Okay, well, I ranted enough. You guys have probably heard way more of that than you care to. And it's another day, so I've got to stop. So please forgive me. Please like the video. Please come back tomorrow. And please have a good night.